Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Finance and Audit Commission, November 7th special meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with Finance and Audit Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in the down and participating remotely. I'd like to introduce staff and Finance and Audit Commission members present. We call it Albright, Lynn Bramlett, Janta Day, myself, and Carol Wong. Staff present include Administrative Services Director Brittany Mello, and Assistant Administrative Services Director Jared Hansen, Interim Finance Budget Manager Ronnie Singh, Senior Accountant Ying Chen, and Management Analyst Adrian Coutinho. Adrian, would you please provide the instructions to the Finance and Audit Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Alrighty. Thank you, Chair Normington and the members of the Finance and Audit Commission. Welcome everyone to the November 7th special meeting of the Finance and Audit Commission, and thank you for attending. Staff will engage in webcams and microphones to make presentations and respond to members of the Finance and Audit Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on the item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak, for virtual participants, you will engage in the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you are dialing in from a cell phone or from a landline, you'll press *9. And if you are in person, you'll complete a speaker card over there at that table and return it to me. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair.
Under regular business, the Finance and Audit Commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require Finance and Audit Commission approval. Our first regular business item is to review the approved 2024-25 work plan and consider forming subcommittees. Want to introduce Analyst Adrian Coutinho to introduce slide.
Great, thank you, Chair. So our first regular business item tonight is reviewing the 2024-25 work plan, which was approved by the City Council. So at our previous regular meeting, the Commission recommended a work plan for 2024-2025, which then went before the City Council on September 24th. At that council meeting, they reviewed the FAC's proposed work plan and made two edits to the work plan, and then approved the work plan with those two edits. So the direction that the council provided was to remove the proposed work plan goal number 6, which was to research opportunities to increase diverse occupancy of commercial vacant downtown real estate to increase city revenues. And they also removed the revised work plan goal number 8, which was identify potential alternative revenue sources and potential expense mitigation opportunities, which also, as a result, results in the dissolution of the subcommittee, which was focused on that work plan goal. So the attachment A of the staff report, which I will project, shows the final approved version of the FAC's 2024-25 work plan, and consists of 11 goals. At this time, the FAC also has the opportunity to review its current subcommittee appointments and consider forming any additional subcommittees or appointing members to serve on existing subcommittees, so long as they do not exceed 3 members, as to avoid a quorum for any activities outside of official, regular, or special meetings, which would be in violation. So in this table here, we have the summary of the active subcommittees and their appointments, which are the Financial Benchmark Subcommittee, Open Gov Transparency Portal Subcommittee, Investment Portfolio Reporting Subcommittee, and finally the Successor Agency Debt Subcommittee. So that concludes my presentation on this item. Now returning to the chair.
So should we have any clarifying questions or comments from the committee before we take public comment? Okay, Adrian, are there any comments in the queue?
All right, if you would like to provide a public comment on tonight's agenda items, C1, review the approved 2024-25 work plan and consider forming subcommittees. If you are on a cell phone or a landline, please press *9. If you are logged in on Zoom, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And if you are in person, please return a speaker card and return it to me. Final call for public or public comment on item C1. And seeing no request for public comment at this time, so we may continue.
Okay, so we can open it up for discussion now.
Well, I'll start. It seems to me that it would be helpful to have some type of subcommittee related to the process of accomplishing the work plan goals. And I got because I see things here that aren't necessarily part of a subcommittee. And then when a subcommittee does its work, what is the process for presenting the work? And I'm sparked to propose this based on seeing of the, I haven't watched their meeting and I wasn't able to attend. The September meeting of the Library Commission had this type of goal. And I thought it would be useful to have, 2 or 3 in the group discussing this and making recommendations. But perhaps it's just me.
And the group would be formed to figure out the process for forming committees.
No, the process related to accomplishing the goals of the work plan. There's a process of doing the work. There are items here that aren't tangibly connected to a work plan. I know some come before the Finance and Audit Commission. The audit, like what we're seeing tonight, these type of, but some of this, I don't see it part of a work plan. And then I think discussing it and perhaps proposing a process or maybe more clarity might be helpful.
Okay.
I was going to say I listened to the city council meeting and it seems like the new things we proposed were deemed not under our purview and mainly because it relates to budget. So kind of just, more of a question to the staff on kind of where the bright lines are with our commission and sort of the things that we can be looking at.
Certainly. So we have the core purpose of the Finance and Audit Commission, which is to ensure that we as a city are providing clear and timely and accurate financial data to the city council and the community. Within the policy and procedure of all of the boards and commissions, it does have some focus areas of the FAC in particular, which includes, thank you. I should have assumed that he would have it up for us, the 4 underneath the commission charges. So those are the primary evergreen business items that this commission is charged with. As we know, the commission over time has added different work plan items, some of which have been approved by the city council, and then some of which we've seen have not been. And so I think that is, that communication with the city council, whether that's a work plan item that they're proposing to add, as we've seen with the successor agency debt, or remove, just depending on what they would also like the commission to take a look at. So I think the bright lines are the charges. That's what we need to do. And then there's gray area, and we get the feedback when we provide the proposed goals to the city council for review.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, we did sort of add the goal on alternative revenue sources, and then we sort of amended it also to look at expense management. And I feel it was added, and then when I know you and Jeff did a bunch of work, and then this time around it kind of got struck out. So in some ways, I kind of feel that work was done, but it didn't kind of come into fruition, and I'm a little bit sad, I guess.
Well, I'd like to comment. I too watched the meeting, and one of my main takeaways was how important it was to queue up what we were really proposing. Because I think if you had the idea that what we wanted to do was look at service delivery in terms of where we could cut programs and that type of thing, which had never been discussed here. So it made me realize that, gee, maybe more background information on the idea would be necessary, or, some kind of, so that's partly what makes me propose the idea of some kind of, temporary subcommittee related to process. And, the process could include the process of, what they're told about it. But did anyone else have a chance to watch it? I guess you were there, right, or no?
No, I
Oh.
don't think that was the one it was a different one. Do you remember when it was?
September 24th.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was quite interesting to watch. Watch
Okay.
later, I couldn't be there.
Yeah, I'll need to check it out.
It was quite a short segment on our work
On our
plans.
thing, yeah.
It was
I
like
figured,
5 minutes
yeah.
tops. So, yeah.
So is this the time where we're supposed to talk about subcommittees and make assignments, reassignments and things? Is that?
This is your
Okay.
opportunity to do so. Certainly the
Okay.
commission can see what's already there and decide on no changes at this time, but you can make whatever changes you would like at this time.
Okay, so then we'll talk a little bit more about what your recommendation and what specifically you guys do.
Well, I haven't come with a proposal because I wanted to float the idea. Some commissions are known for being active commissions, and I've heard that commended, like the Environmental Quality Commission. If they're working on work that isn't being done aligned with the goals. And then I noticed the Library Commission agenda topic, I have been a library commissioner too, related to accomplishing the work plan. So, and I looked at what they proposed. I haven't I haven't watched their meeting. I imagine those are recorded too. Is that correct or no?
I believe all
Okay.
of their meetings are.
Yeah, so I want to do that. I just haven't had time. But it just seems to me there should be more of a process discussion and then expectations, because, like when Jeff and I came, there was that standing agenda topic at the end of the meeting. But we did hand out a memo. And then later we met with staff, and it would have, I think, and we did reach out before the meeting. Okay, we could have reached out perhaps more blatantly. But, maybe the process, recommended process meeting with the staff first, or, some kind of expectation of, at this date you're presenting or so forth, because, I see some of these items and I don't know of any plan, and, on someone's own, they can go ahead and work, but we also don't want to do work that won't be considered valuable. So it might just be a group that meets for one or two, sessions, or maybe 3 or 4, discusses that, how could we move this forward? And especially some of the items with no subcommittee attached,
Mhm.
and then come back and make recommendations. Because some commissions, they have a standing Environmental Quality Commission, I think, a yearly agenda where these kinds of updates are slated.
So like a work plan management committee.
Yeah, or discuss it and, make recommendations. Yeah, that could be a good working title. I'm probably not expressing myself too well tonight. I apologize.
Well, it just sounds like it's a group to just get better organized on what we need to do and what needs to be done.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, yeah. I mean, anybody else, like, any other thoughts on it?
Well, how does this sound to the rest of you? What do you think that would be useful? Colleagues or?
I'm just sort of looking at the subcommittees we already have and some of them sort of relate to one-off things. Some of them relate to ongoing things. And I think with the ongoing things already being sort of our periodical mandate, I'm not sure, adding a work plan committee for those things necessarily drives anything because we already have to periodically talk about them. I think that work plan committee probably would be more focused on these one-off things that we add as goals each year and kind of accomplishing those things.
Well, I'd like, to hear from Mark before I comment again.
My perspective is we should look at the subcommittee that we need to staff them appropriately and get them, make sure they're functioning appropriately. And then we can go back and look at what else we can do.
Do you want to say more about that? What do you have in mind for functioning effectively?
That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
I sort of feel we don't really have that many bodies, so if we form another committee to sort of work with committees that already have things to do, that seems like an additional committee over already a group of committees. So if the problem we're trying to solve is we want to move quicker on things or we want to set specific timelines, we can probably do this collectively at our meetings quarterly and maybe have a quarterly check-in on progress for each of the subcommittees, and that might, drive things to move faster. I just don't know if we formed the committee you had in mind, what exactly, like, how would it operate? And maybe that's more of a question on how you envision it operating. And
Maybe a better option would be an agenda topic on it. In terms of structurally, what is the process and how do we move this forward? Maybe that, I know we are somewhat talking about this, but in a way it's kind of maybe beyond the stated agenda item. So.
Okay, well, we can, I think, I mean, it's just, I guess what the issue is that you're focusing in on is, I think we just need greater organization.
And I would say clarity too, organization and maybe expectations of when these are, what kind of deliverables are expected and by when.
Yeah. Well, then maybe each subcommittee should get together between now and our next meeting, and we should, each present at the next meeting
Okay. That's
what we're doing and what the timing is. And then we could put, I think you could put on future agenda, a presentation, for, like, we could calendarize when each subcommittee is going to be reporting out whatever their deliverables are and put that on the calendar for future meetings. Okay.
when is that the process you're thinking, more that, there's an active time for everyone to report out? Or does this include staff as well in the process around working with staff?
I think that should be a more active, what you described. I like the sound of that. And then during that could naturally and organically be a discussion related to the staff.
Yeah, like for each of the subcommittee presentations.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that there's probably some more things that we could be doing to be more, efficient. Move things along. And maybe put greater definition around the goals of each of the subcommittees. I guess when I look at the 11 items on here, I mean, nothing does anything's. Nothing really strikes me as. Being as, warranting a special subcommittee beyond what we already have, but I'm curious. Others' thoughts if we needed to expand our. Subcommittees. To any other things. So I think most of the repeating items are around reviewing and signing off on financials and the investments. So. Unless anybody thinks that we should be forming new committees, then I think we should revisit the assignments and who's part of those committees, and if anybody wants to, if we want to be reshuffling things. So on the financial benchmarks committee. I guess that's you and Jeff and Jackson,
Right,
two of whom are here.
that's correct.
So. And then Carol and I are on OpenGov, Colin and Jackson are investment reporting, and then Carol and Colin are successor agency debt. So does that still sound appropriate to people, or do people want to move around? Yeah,
Maybe I'm mistaken, but did we have a conversation about the OpenGov transparency portal potentially having sort of lifted its due course, and maybe we should consider closing it?
did we mentioned,
I think it was raised and you're still working on it, for some reason still working.
Oh, there was some finishing touches to be done?
So,
Maybe.
so Matt reported out on what we had chatted about, and then I think we just need to kind of either work with staff to take action on certain ideas, and then that would really conclude it.
yeah, I think there's some recommendations we had.
Yeah, that needed, either staff to help action on, or for us as a group to just increase just the visibility of OpenGov. I think we had a couple of different ideas.
The work plan, more, like, longer one, and community training. I think most people probably aren't aware of it or how to use it.
Or even where on the website to find
Exactly.
it. Yeah. So yeah, I think we just had a couple of ideas on maybe making it more explicit on the website and, potentially providing training videos. But that was just the next part of the report out.
And even some of these goals, for example, 9, foster a public meeting environment that is inclusive of all members of the diverse Menlo Park community. To me, that kind of a topic, and it could be a topic discussed at this meeting, would warrant maybe not a subcommittee, but more of a discussion as to what that might look like. But I'm not trying to suggest more work for other people. And in terms of the benchmarks, I think the idea of, have an expectation of presenting would be a good one. That would be a very good beginning with our existing subcommittees, to hear from them and consider what else.
You and Jeff did present something on the benchmark.
No,
or Jeff?
no, it had to do with new revenue
Okay.
streams and I don't want to use that term, and the other one, looking for ways maybe there could be some cost saving or efficiency measures.
I believe Commissioner LaRoe had given a brief, like
Yeah,
more
yeah.
impromptu.
Yeah, he did,
Update
yeah,
from his
okay.
own
Yeah,
early
I see.
research.
Yeah,
what he-
I do remember him.
Yes, I remember that now.
So do we want to put financial benchmarks on the next agenda?
That's fine with me.
Would be our first one.
But I thought they were all gonna present, or it'd kind of be in a queue.
Yeah,
That's fine with
yeah, because we've got, so when our next meeting would be, when is it? It's probably not till.
Our next regular is, January.
January,
16th,
okay.
I think it is.
January
Okay.
16th.
And I would anticipate there probably being one special between that person. There might be something
the-
we need. I'll bring that.
You know, we have the annual comprehensive financial report that needs to be reviewed by the FEC prior to going to city council, and that has some strict deadlines on when that has to go, so but depending on when that's ready, that might come before a special meeting.
Okay. Yeah, well, so in our January meeting, maybe we have an agenda for each of the subcommittees to provide an update.
That'd be great.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
That'd be great.
Is there any reason why we couldn't just have that as a standing item on every meeting? And if we don't have an update,
Yeah.
we just have nothing to present?
Well, we do have, on tonight's agenda, we do have, agenda item D, committee / subcommittee reports, which kind of fulfills that role that you're describing.
Okay, is that on every, I've not noticed that before, is that on every meeting?
I don't.
We
think-
just added.
Yeah,
Okay,
a
yeah,
recent
so-
improvement
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
provide the opportunity.
Okay.
We had it on the last meeting that we
Okay.
were not able to hold, and then we brought it again
Okay.
to this agenda.
All right, well, good, well, then that gives us the ability then each meeting to be able to comment on that then.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so let's definitely keep that on there going forward then.
And just to clarify, you'd like the broader committee, subcommittee reports item listed and not to list each subcommittee by name.
Yeah, I think that's fine, yeah, because the ones that have something to report on can report, yeah.
And say if through the report out, there was specific action we wanted to take, we would have to agendize that for a next meeting, is that right? So say, you know, Matt and I gave an update and we said, let's do a training video to make that decision. We couldn't do it when we do the update. It would have to be agendized for another meeting. And for us to take a decision, is that?
And because it's not on because our committee report wasn't on the agenda.
Because it's just an update from the committee instead of like a actual decision session. I'm just trying to figure out whether sort of through like our general updates, we can be making decisions or.
Yeah, because I don't want to
Whenever-
wait 2 months to have to then make the decision to do something.
Yeah, so just kind of wondering from a process perspective.
I think that the answer would be the specific action items where the commission is voting to approve something to proceed to city council. Those action items are most definitely are required to be on the agenda. If this is something that the subcommittee is working on, you're reporting out to the full committee and or commission. And there's interest in moving forward a subcommittee goal. Or work plan items such as creating a training video in your example. I do not believe that would require action from the full commission
Okay,
because the subcommittee is taking
Got
action
it.
as a
Okay.
subcommittee.
okay.
I think if you're looking for the full commission or for something to be going to council, then I believe that would need to be a more specific agenda item for consideration by the commission.
Okay, no, that's really helpful.
Okay. So we're gonna leave the subcommittees as is? Is that what we're thinking?
Jayanta, do you want to join the subcommittee?
I think I'm over to you, so yes, I think I should. Like to. or-
We don't want you to be left out.
Is there one that? I'm actually happy to. Get a recommendation or based on a need, John.
So do you wanna, so on financial benchmarks, Lynn? So can we only have 3? There's only 3 people.
Three is-
Yeah, okay. What's so on the investment portfolio reporting then? I guess what do you guys with you guys.
So I think the main goal is really to change the benchmark that we're using. Um. Basically just review all the other terms
Okay.
for an update. It's a quick project. I actually haven't connected with Jackson on it at this point.
Okay, that might be something, I mean, the open gov, you know, I think to your point, like, we've kind of worked close.
Yeah.
You were trying to tiger it.
Yeah.
The only thing though, Matt, is I think both you and my term ends in April.
Oh, yeah,
So to the extent there's anything that needs to live on, for example, if we do propose doing a training video or some sort of like community outreach, we may need someone to kind of pass the baton onto, so.
Yeah.
Janta, if you want to join, then that might provide us some transition.
sure, yeah, okay. Good idea.
Sounds good.
All right, so we'll add you to the open gov committee.
Sure.
Okay,
You could join more than one too if you wanted.
Well, it's that financial benchmarks, it's kind of 3 people already.
Right,
Yeah.
but you could, right, if you wanted to,
Yeah,
because you're on
perfect.
too, aren't you?
I'm
Carol?
good with
Yes.
the
Okay.
open gov for now, and it sounds like. The some portfolio is a quick kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that from a need perspective, this one seems to.
all right, so, I guess at this point, I turn it back to you to state the motion.
Certainly, so. Motion to select Commissioner Jay Day to the Open Gov Transparency Portal Subcommittee.
I will, yeah, I will agree to the motion.
You'll move.
I'll move, yes, thank you.
I'll second.
I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah. I forgot.
I thought you were about to say I would second the motion, and I was
Yeah, that was
Something
easy.
check.
He's stating it, then someone's making it the first and the second.
All in favor?
So, yeah, I think unanimous,
Me, I'm allowed to vote.
So, yeah,
Right, the motion passes 5-0.
all right, and so we have another regular business item, reviewing the investment portfolio reports for September 30th, 2024. And recommend receipt by city council. Yeah, I'll turn it over to management analyst Adrian Patino to introduce this item.
All right. So thank you, Chair. We have the latest and greatest investment portfolio report before the commission today. One kind of small addition that's not in kind of like the typical reports that we bring is a minor update with respect to the investment policy. So after this commission reviewed and recommended approval of the investment policy, we brought it to the city council, which then directed staff to include some language around responsible investing. So staff took that recommendation from the city council, created a new draft of the investment policy in collaboration with our investment advisor, Insight Investment, and presented that back to the city council on September 10th, which was then approved by the city council. So the additional language really kind of formalizes the city's kind of recent past practice of managing the portfolio in a ESG sensitive manner, where ESG is a consideration within the city's portfolio, but is not, but is, you know, subordinate to the investment goals of safety, liquidity, and yield. So with that, moving on to some of the highlights of the portfolio performance for the last period. The portfolio came in with a fair market value of 202.84 million against a amortized cost basis of 201.95 million for resulting in an unrealized gain of about 0.89 million. The total portfolio yielded about 3.81% with a weighted average maturity of 2.02 years. The ESG rating of the portfolio moved slightly from 3.14 to 3.21. As a reminder, 1 is considered the best investment, 5 the worst, and 3 is average. So the overall portfolio is a little bit below average. So that concludes my presentation, and I return it to the chair.
Any clarifying questions from the committee?
What page on the agenda packet? Where are the returns?
Starting page like
See,
17, 18.
Oh,
Yeah, 17
of
of
the
the
PDF.
PDF.
18.
Page C2.1 is where the static which does. So investment reports like starting page 20 to 20.
Questions? Yeah, Adrian, do you have any public comments?
If you would like to provide a public comment on tonight's agenda item C2, review the investment portfolio reports for September 30th, 2024, and recommend receipt by city council. If you are dialing in from a cell phone or from a landline, please press *9. If you are logged in virtually, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And if you are in person, please complete a speaker card and return it to me. Last call for public comment for agenda item C2. And seeing no request for public comment at this time, we may continue.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. We can open it up to discussion.
I have a question. I know in the past we've heard from Inside, but they're not here tonight, correct? Is that customary, or what is customary when they go over the reports?
so we generally have our advisor participate in the FAC meetings on the annual basis when the investment policy
Okay.
is coming for review. And then they also help present on that quarterly investment report when they're here. Otherwise, staff present the other 3.
Okay,
But if there's a question, we can certainly.
no,
Where did this figure come from? The average 2-year treasury note saw a yield of 2.18%. Because just looking at the yield on the 2-year of the quarter, it doesn't even get close to that.
I think it comes from the agenda page C2.8 or page 24 of the PDF. There's a box in the bottom left. Okay. 6 months trailing.
Oh, it's gotta be total return.
So I know. I think it was last year or a little while ago, we had chatted about whether we want to include sort of a ESG rating benchmark into our investment policy. And kind of my recollection, at least from the past couple of quarters, is that we've been below average for quite a little while now. How are we compared to sort of other cities around us? Like, are we an outlier in terms of our investments being below average, or sort of is that generally everyone? Cause, just kind of, it's not great being below average.
Yeah, I can help answer that at a high level. So part of environmental, social, and governance is it's still relatively new, and there isn't one set agreed upon way to measure them. And so the way that our investment advisor does that is a proprietary way where they're taking at least 3 different types of these available methodologies and blending them together. And then they do some weighting, and that's how they're able to get to the individual ESG rating for each item. So it's a proprietary customized methodology that they have honed in on over time for all of the portfolios that this applies to. So I think the fact that there isn't one guiding North Star does influence our ability to compare to other agencies. Not all cities have ESG principles in their investment portfolio. This safety, liquidity, and yield are the universal ones, required by the state. And the ESG ratings for any particular investment changes frequently. So we might be purchasing it when it is a 1 or a 2, so highly rated. And then, there's a strike in their company, let's say, because that's part of the social and the governance factors. Then there might be a 4 for that quarter until they get a new agreement with their employees, and then maybe they're back to a 3. So it really does bounce around. Most of what we are holding in our portfolio, we are trying to hold it for a little bit longer to get higher rates of return. So we might be holding something that goes to different ratings until it comes to the end of its term. So that's just more analysis for you, more data points. Anyone has anything to add?
I have a question. Is there an overall group outside of, government, local government entity that is advocating for this rating system? And if so, what is the name of the group? And I would like to do more research on this topic for myself. So is there one? I'm not familiar with it.
I would have to do more research on that unless anyone else knows anything.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with that.
I'm not suggesting work for you. I just, want to know.
That there's probably something with I would guess SEC probably has something that. That's pure conjecture that they have something out there.
Because I'm curious because it's a topic that's out there and it's important. And I remember I was at the meeting where I watched it later where I think it was Councilmember Dorr who brought it up. So it seems to me I know the concept is out there, but who's behind the body of knowledge and promoting it? Do you know what I mean? Because often there is.
Do you mean who's rating or?
Just the idea of this topic itself.
It's relatively new.
Okay.
There is no industry standard. There's a bunch of groups out there putting forth their own sort of frameworks. I think you can. Probably just. Google form to get some leads.
Okay.
I remember looking at this, but I can't remember. Their name specifically, just to clarify, who put ESG on the investment policy? Is that city council or is that us?
It's not on the investment.
It is as of
Yes.
the September
okay.
September meeting. So
Okay.
yes.
And it's not officially saying we are managing
Yeah,
our
yeah.
portfolio as an ESG portfolio, but saying we consider that
Yeah,
as we
right.
make the investments. And that's the one thing to mention too, is that we invest in items that are going to be 3 or better. And that might, as Brittany mentioned, that might go to 5 in this current quarter and go back up. But because we're holding to maturity, that all weighs into the total average of what our portfolio looks like.
And I was quickly able to bring up a prior presentation that our investment advisor provided to the FAC. Believe during the COVID years. And he cites the ESG coming from the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investing.
Okay.
That's where it first initiated.
So did we propose putting it on the investment policy during the COVID years and it just made it on September 30th?
It was discussed. We believe a city council member mentioned it. So it was brought to the commission to discuss. At that time, the commission did not take further action to propose adding that to the investment policy. Inside Investment did begin reporting just as a data point, but not as a decision-making point. And the council recently formalized that it should be a decision point behind safety, liquidity, and yield.
And the rule is we don't invest in more than a 3.
There is, there's some more flexibility than that per se, but we would not be purchasing a new investment that's rated as a 4 or a 5.
Got it.
So, yeah, and we don't, we're not required to sell if it reaches a 4 or 5 either.
Specifically, what it got added is a section on responsible investing, which says the city is committed to the principles of responsible investing, which emphasize environmental stewardship, social responsibility, and good governance on the part of all corporate issuers. While these principles are subordinate to the key investment objectives of safety, liquidity, and yield noted above, the city's investment choices are guided by the idea that community well-being is enhanced by a commitment to environmental sustainability, including but not limited to reducing carbon emissions and promoting clean energy initiatives. B, fair labor practices and equal rights regardless of sex, race, age, disability, or sexual orientation. And C, good governance, which emphasizes transparency, accountability, and ethical business conduct. As such, the city manages its investment portfolio as an ESG sensitive portfolio that takes into account the different aspects of responsible investing. Direct investment in securities from issuers that are involved in the production of fossil fuels, firearms, or tobacco products is prohibited.
Thank you.
And there's only 2 sections that this applies to, and that's to the prime commercial paper and to the medium-term notes.
Okay.
Because those are the only corporate items.
Yeah, so I think sort of as a commission, we can definitely pose more wording to that, given I think we do have some level of oversight over the investment policy. Is that correct? But we would have to
Yeah,
propose something.
yeah, I would be excited to discuss this further with Jax on the subcommittee and then bring it to the table. So thank you for that. I haven't reviewed it since September 30th. I was really just trying to understand, is there a hard and fast rule? Because otherwise the idea of committed to but subordinate presents a conflicting objective. And unless we can really quantify how much return we'd be willing to give up to move up a point rating, it's contradictory and ambiguous. So it sounds like we have, if not an outright ban, we're just not investing in certain sectors, which is pretty clear. That's great. But yeah, the whole ESG concept is measuring qualitative things and applying sort of preconceived ethics to it. So it's tricky. But thank you for that.
Yeah, I think during that COVID period, when we did have that discussion on whether we wanted some hard benchmarks in which, you know, if a rating dropped, we would actually divest. Insights Investment, you know, again, reminded us of sort of the fickleness of these ratings. And, you know, we could potentially be selling at a loss. We could be selling quite frequently if, we did consider that as part of the investment policy. So that's one reason why we didn't really think about this more seriously, but I think it is a good step that city council is now, suggesting wording within the investment policy, at least for purchases
The newspapers.
to, be sort of within a certain band. Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you, Colin. It's very tricky to operationalize within an investment policy.
Anything else? Okay. All right, Adrian, you want to see the motion, please?
Certainly. Motion to recommend receipt of the investment portfolio reports for September 30th, 2024 by the city council.
Motion.
Second,
And all in favor? And the motion passes 5-0.
There's a item D. Subcommittee reports. We've talked about this. Are there any subcommittees that would like to report at this time? Anything? If that is no. Next item is item E, under informational items, city staff provides updates on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items, however, commissioner, city staff member, or member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any informational items. So the first item is a quarterly update on city grant funding. So Adrian, are there any public comments on item E1?
All right, if you would like to comment on agenda item E1, quarterly update on city grant funding. If you are logged in remotely, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you're on a cell phone or on a landline, please press *9 now. And if you're in person, please complete a speaker card and return it to me. Final call for public comment for agenda item E1. Seeing no request for public comment.
Turn it back to you to do the presentation on the city grant funding.
Right, certainly. So the very back of our agenda, we have the summary of the city's grant funding. We've last provided this update in the previous quarter. Some of the highlights from the last time we shared an update on city grant funding include a new application for a cyber security grant program for the Administrative Services Department, which is for $250,000 from FEMA for state and local cybersecurity grant program. There are some other grants that are also in the application process, including a Water Smart grant for water efficiency projects, a Caltrans Senate Bill 1 grant for regional shoreline adaptation with regards to sea level rise. There's also a Peninsula Clean Energy grant as well, headed by our sustainability department. And there's another grant that is not in the application process, but in kind of like the exploratory phase with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for a couple of active transportation projects that staff is seeking funding for.
I have a broader question, just because if you don't meet, the requirements of the grant, there is grant de-obligation possibility. So I'm just wondering what kind of impact. I personally think it's very commendable that the city is working to pursue these grants and obtaining them. And I was actually at a conference where the city of Menlo Park was visibly held up along with its partners as kind of a poster child of what to do right. And I took screenshots that I've yet to forward on, but there is, I guess I'm asking what kind of impact is this having on the staff organization? are there enough people to complete the grants and, you know, paperwork that's needed? That's another level. How is that working out for you?
It is a challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment. You know, we do have a high vacancy rate citywide. And that goes within our Public Works Department as well, and Public Works is the leader on our grants board. And so when there are fewer staff, that does make it difficult. Most of these grants, especially you know, federal and state grants have a lot of reporting requirements. They require you to spend a certain amount of money by a certain time to hit different milestones that you may have listed in your application. And if you don't hit those milestones or complete the reporting, there can be consequences of losing funding. So it is something that our staff and the city leadership are mindful of. You know, looking for different ways to meet those requirements, if different resources are needed to be brought to bear due to the staff vacancies. So it is top of mind.
What is the $50 million day for a teacher?
Yes, so that's to combat sea level rise on the bay. And so I believe the city received the largest grant to help address that. And so that is at least a 5-year grant, if not longer, to help meet those milestones of planning for sea level rise.
I'm shocked we got more than Redwood Shores.
Yeah.
Do you know how much Redwood Shores got?
I have no idea, but we got the most.
Oh,
They probably have the biggest seal on them.
No.
I believe we got the most.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that from someone.
Okay.
Do we just review and ask you questions, or is there anything we need to like find on?
This is just an information item, so staff isn't required to present a presentation. It's just if the commission has questions. Previously, the commission asked to see this on a quarterly basis, so that's.
So these dollar amounts are like total commitments, they get dispersed over a number of years, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Yes. How's the like pace of commitments going relative to prior years? You know, is it a big fundraising year, grant raising year?
Staff are certainly actively applying for grants. I'm not sure if you know how successful we'll be at the ones that we're applying for. It can almost be can be a blessing and a curse if you get all of them at once and then have to, as Commissioner Bramlett was saying, take on that extra work to comply. So I'm not sure exactly how we compare to prior years, but we're certainly actively working on many fronts, especially you know, public works and sustainability.
You're also working with partners, right? That brick grant is in PG&E, and I forget who else was involved, that 50 million one that Colin brought up. So I don't see the partners listed here. I'm not suggesting more, but you know, that could be interesting too, to know who you're working with for some of them. And maybe, how many of these, aside from that one that I just mentioned, involve partners?
I would have to do more digging on that. I would say most of them are within the city, yes, purview.
I wouldn't want to add anything to your workload. So I'm just curious. Because that adds complexities too.
Yeah, I imagine some of Public Works' grants have certainly need to work with other agencies such as Caltrans very frequently. So I think it might be different than like a funding partner, but a partner to collaborate to do the work effectively.
For the awarded projects, what time periods does this represent of these, when were they awarded? Are these over like the last year, last 2 years?
These are all of our active grants, but it could be, you know, most grants are looking at that 5-year
Okay,
time.
okay.
frame.
So they're
it could be
currently
really anywhere
within
within
that,
there.
okay.
There, I would say in general, the grants under public works typically have the longest
Mhm.
span, kind of like the longest time horizon, since they're typically capital related. There are some grants, for example, there's some in library and community services with childcare that are often annual applications. So it's kind of a mix of both. So some of these will span, 5 years and have funds dispersed over time with maybe certain requirements or checkpoints along the way, or matching funds that the city has to provide in order to get those grant dollars. And then there's others that are kind of on an annual cycle that the city applies for regularly to continue to augment the services that we provide.
One example of that is the police supplemental law enforcement services funds. That's something PD receives annually.
Anything else?
And you're working with an outside firm, right, to help get these, remember that gentleman talked to us?
Yes,
Okay.
so California Consulting is an outside firm that is available to assist with both identifying grants and applying for grants, and then staff also identify and apply on our own as well.
So I guess at this point, we can adjourn the meeting. Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.